Hillary did it. Congress wastes time on UFOs. Sussman trial is underway. Domestic terrorism bill allows the FBI to silence dissent. The Ministry of Truth has been suspended, and Nancy's been suspended from receiving communion. BLM is a grift. Air Force expels cadets. Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, they're the enemy, y'all. Drug tunnels are found at the border, and drugs continue to kill more Americans than the vid. Ending Title 42 has been blocked. Illegal immigration is bankrupting our country, y'all. Teachers and Disney continue to groom our children, and $58 billion to Ukraine. But we can't protect our schools or our children here at home. Dave Chappelle's attacker will go free, and Francis is a real SOB. Our government just doesn't care about us. Period. End of story. I'm Mimi. This is The Rundown. Now get ready for my posse over at Politics Plus podcast. I'm sure they got something to say.
Welcome to Politics Plus, where we talk about politics plus so much more. Before we get too far in, we'd like to ask you to go ahead and press that like button, share, and subscribe to our Politics Plus channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram as well as Twitter, and you can also catch the show on iTunes, Spotify, Rumble, Amazon Music, Audible, Anchor, and all of the links are located at the bottom of our YouTube About page. Go check it out. So today, we're talking politics plus kids and guns and mass shootings. It's going to be a hot button topic, huh? So we have a lot of information on the current shooting that just happened. And when I say current shooting, you're probably wondering, are we talking about Buffalo? Or are we talking about California? Are we talking about Texas? Like, what is the current shooting? But that's why we're not particularly focusing on the Texas shooting being the current shooting. But we do have a list of, current violence that's been happening in the U.S., and we're going to kind of break it down and talk about it. Okay, so looking at the deaths in America, looking at how people are murdered, at the homicide rates, Mark, what do you have based on, how people die?
Well, and this is a study from 2020. Handguns are responsible for 8,000 deaths in America. While rifles are only responsible for 455. But the interesting thing here is blunt objects, and they name hammers, are responsible for 393 deaths, which is only 62 less than rifles. Okay?
And aren't hands and feet on that list too?
Hands and feet are on the list. 662 hands and feet, which is 207 more deaths than rifles even, than they're even responsible for. So more people are killed.
Yet we are not talking about we're not talking about phalange control. We're not talking about appendage control.
I mean, this is an interesting study because, this really actually breaks it down really nicely for us to understand that it's not firearms that are the issue. It's just people in general. It's your heart-related issues, what you feel in your heart, what you do.
Okay, so what we're looking at is that clearly guns aren't the problem.
Guns are not the problem.
No, it is not.
What about mental health? Do we think mental health is a problem here with the rise in violence?
Mental health is a good portion of it. I don't have the actual numbers, but talking about this kid, he was bullied and he just stopped going to school because of it. So where was his help? Where were the guidance counselors, the teachers? And where was the help there?
And when he stopped going to school, he was kicked out of his mother's house and was forced to move in with his grandmother, who he proceeded to shoot in the face. So clearly there was no school support. There was no, mental health support. There was no familial support. We didn't And in these situations, they'll say he fell through the cracks.
I think it's safe to
That's a cop out.
I think it's safe to say that every one of these ways of killing people would be
They all fall through the cracks then.
Rooted in mental health, situations of the mind. You don't just kill people with your hands without, or with any of one of these things, without having some issues.
Can it really be considered falling through the cracks if we leave this door wide open? We take away mental health facilities. We take away, the conversations about mental health, because we don't talk about mental health. It's extremely taboo to talk about mental health until a beauty queen kills herself, or there's a mass shooting, or
up until something happens, then that's when everybody wants to talk about mental health, and then it goes down the wayside.
Exactly. And then so soon we forget about it, and all of a sudden it becomes legislation on,
guns.
the thing they use to commit the crime. And so, which
mental
is
health
interesting.
is slippery
But,
slope.
if somebody mental health is a slippery slope, but it's also a very wide spectrum.
Yeah.
You can be depressed and be suicidal, but you can also be depressed and just not want to get out of bed. There is a very wide range of what this singular word actually means. And I think that the same can be said for a mass casualty event. The same can be said because in the U.S. history, historically, the biggest school death case, I guess, mass violence case in school history was actually a bombing of a man who destroyed his home, his farm, killed his wife, then went to a school and put dynamite in the basement of the school, blew the school up and killed 38 kids, then proceeded to put dynamite in the back of his car in front of the school. And the only bullet ever fired in this situation was to spark the dynamite in the back of his car, where he killed him and 4 other people on top of the 38 that were already killed. So, and when I was growing up, that's what the terror was. The terror was bombings in school.
Yeah.
That was the 80s, the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like, we were looking at bombings.
What was the Oklahoma one? Remember the Oklahoma with, was it Dahmer? Was it Jeffrey Dahmer? No. Who was it? Timothy McVeigh, yeah.
Timothy McVeigh.
I mean, that was a similar to what you just talked about, Maycie. That was all explosives, and there was no firearms in that one, to the best of my knowledge. How many people were killed in that one?
Well, the same thing with the Trade Center. The first time it was bombings, it wasn't shootings.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like you said, from the 70s to the 90s, early 90s, it was bomb threats. But then what happened in the 2000s that changed everything? Media.
Well,
internet.
Not to mention that, also in the early 1990s, we implemented gun-free zones.
That's true too.
Hey, when you said that, let me read something to you real quick, Maycie, real quick. Now that you said gun-free zones, I saw this meme yesterday. It says, we protect our president, our congressmen, our governors, our celebrities, our sporting events, our jewelry stores, our banks, our office buildings, our factories, and our courts. But we defend our children with a sign that reads, "This is a gun-free zone."
And just out of curiosity,
Isn't it amazing?
do you think that congressional members' children are at a school that is not guarded by guns?
You can be sure of it.
Do you think that?
Well, they're being guarded.
Exactly. We take more cautious. You send your kids to a particular school if you are an elitist or you are somebody high in power. We send them to a particular school so that they can eat, meals that were not prepared by Michelle Obama, or so that you can have an armed guard and stuff like that. And I believe, I completely believe in that, Mark. Staff is armed and trained, and any attempt to harm a child will be met with deadly force. And I think that that's necessary.
My kids went to this school.
If you look at Israel, and see, I think that's incredible.
And that's why they went to that school. Sorry.
Good choices. But if you look at Israel's statistics, Israel actually promotes teachers being armed. And they have actually done all of these studies, and they have, so Israel has like a fourth of the population that we do. Like, we have a substantially larger number. But they don't deal with these problems like we deal with these problems because they use common sense solutions. If it's going to take a period of time for a first responder to get there, let the adults be the first responders, let them, rather than being a victim, let them use self-defense in the same sense that they are being attacked. And I completely agree with that. And like we were talking about, so in the 1980s, the FBI defined a mass murder as 4 or more victims killed in one event in one place. And so when we talk about mass shootings, we keep coming back to that 98% of shootings happen in a gun-free zone, which that statistic is actually technically flawed because when they cite that 98%, they have taken out gang fights and robberies and the commission of a crime and something like that. So if you, and they've taken out, somebody being shot in a mass shooting in someone's home. But the most interesting statistic that I think that I found this entire time was that they asked convicted felons, in 2019, the Foundation for Economic Education actually asked convicted felons, and 60% of convicted felons avoided a crime if they knew that the victim was going to be armed. And even Obama stated that there was 3 million deaths a year that were prevented by firearms.
Well, they also asked the same question.
But nobody.
If you had another means of killing someone, would you still have killed them? Because look at what happens with automobiles and all the rest of the things we already talked about, hammers and feet and hands, everything. Did they ask the same people if they could have killed with something other than a firearm? Would they still have done it? I'd be willing to bet you the answer would be yes.
Which is particularly funny because this is where a lot of these people, a lot of these criminals, they know what neighborhoods to go to. Mm-hmm. Because once they start scoping them out, they're like, okay, not there because I know what they have over there. Besides dogs, you can hear people shooting in the back. So you know what? I'm not going to go attack that home right now.
That's my house. Okay, so I live in the middle of nowhere, I can't see my neighbors' houses. It's the best feeling in the world. But I am almost 100% sure that someone on my street owns a fucking cannon. I'm pretty sure because I hear it shoot off regularly, right? It's either the loudest gun ever made or it's a freaking cannon. So that being said, you don't see violent crimes out in my area. You don't see, people coming to this particular area. You didn't see back in 2020 mass riots or in this particular area, because if you were blocking our road, you would probably get shot, and the only actual crime that you see in our area is at night when we have a gas station. Okay. That's what my town has. We have a gas station.
My kind of
town. That gas station, yeah, that gas station has been broken into since we moved here probably 4 times. But it always happens after they've closed. They never come in because in this particular area in Tennessee, in redneck territory, we don't play. Okay? And I think that in itself proves so much because there's an estimated 2.5 million crimes a year that are prevented by a law-abiding gun owner stopping a shooting. And if you do the math on that, that means that 6,849 are stopped a day.
Can I add to that?
Well,
no one's saying yes.
Fix your face, Mel. Fix it. Do this.
I know.
Okay.
Well, I was going to add to Mel's point by saying that there's 330 million people in this country, but 393.3 million firearms. So that not everybody not everybody has a firearm. So to Mel's point, people know where to go to perpetrate crimes because Maycie probably has 15 firearms in her house, so in other words, not everybody, even though there's that many firearms, there's probably 150 firearms in her house now that she's doing that, but not everybody has, even though there's more firearms than there are people in this country, doesn't mean everybody has one.
with that being said, when the riots were happening last year and they wanted to come to the suburbs in Long Island, they tried to, and they were stopped because homeowners out here, they're allowed to have guns for hunting season. So they thought twice and they turned their little asses right back to the city. Yep. So again, they do know where they're going. They tried to come up here and it didn't work out very well for them.
So arguing that, gun-free zones are a problem, I think that in itself, that point is pretty easy. I feel like we put this into legislation and then you take a period of time and you go, okay, shit's not working. Okay. So, and that's the point that you have to come and revisit. And rather than revisiting the laws that are already on the books, maybe this is the libertarian in me, but instead of revisiting the laws that are on the books, we're trying to implement new gun laws and new gun legislations. And we have we have extremely ridiculous gun legislation as is. And, 90% of Americans believe in background checks, okay, for all purchases of all guns, that you should have a background check. And I completely support that, doing a background check. And I feel, but the thing is, disregarding my feelings, 80% of police officers in America believe that teachers and principals should be allowed to be armed based on their personal choice. And nobody is saying that you are required to have a gun in your desk. Nobody is requiring that of you. But if that's what makes you feel safe, then why can't you do that?
With that being said, isn't it funny how people are willing to go and defend their homes with a gun, but not willing to go into school with a gun to defend their students? Mm-hmm. So that's hypocrisy right there, because if you're willing to do it for your house, how come you're not willing to do it for the place that you work at, knowing that you actually need it there as well?
I mean, I agree.
Imagine if just 2 or 3 teachers out of a school with, say, 10 or 12 teachers in it, imagine if only 3 of them had firearms, say, for example, because not everybody should be carrying. Most teachers are blue leaning, so they're not really fans of firearms to speak out, for the most part, but there are several who are. So if you had a school with, say, let's just say you had 12 teachers and 3 of them were armed, and actually people who liked firearms, you would have a real sincere difference or change in someone's idea of going to a school and killing kids, or anybody for that matter.
And I like that you mentioned that, because back when we look at the 1800s and early 1900s, we look at most of these crimes that were committed with guns in schools, particularly the ones that were committed in schools in that time frame, were all a person with a grievance attacking another singular person, and there may have been a couple of bystanders, but they were particularly going after a singular person that had freaking pissed them off. And when you say that, that's somebody coming to school. I know that there was, what did I have on that? So the earliest known school shooting was in 1764, and it was, this is one of the ones that was not a singular incident. It was 4 American Indians. It was called the Pontiac Rebellion School Massacre. But they went to go kill the schoolmaster and they ended up killing 10 students. But that's the first school mass shooting that we had. But then you go all the way to 1853, and in Kentucky, a kid had gone to school and he killed the schoolmaster for bullying his little brother. New York, a 13-year-old injured his classmates. Up until 1991, the first known mass shooting in the United States, we didn't have mass shootings, really. It was all people being stabbed or attacked with rocks, okay? Like literally throwing stones. And I assume that's where the sticks and stones can break your bones but won't hurt you comes from. But when we look at it like that, we look at it like most of this was a younger child. I consider 13 to 18, I guess, a child still. But we're looking at this idea of most people that are not comfortable around firearms. It's because they're ignorant about
Yes.
firearms.
Yeah.
They don't.
And
know.
those are the people that are making an uproar on this. Because if they truly knew what it was to hold a gun, how to clean a gun, and all that, they wouldn't be speaking.
Learn
But
some
of
stuff.
course,
They're the ones that just are uncomfortable and hate guns. Period. Because they think they kill people.
They're ignorant.
They don't. It's not the gun that's killing people. It's the person
So-
holding it.
No. So in my house, there is a rule. My kids have Nerf guns. And from the very beginning, my husband has taught both of my kids, even though it is a toy, you do not aim it to someone. You don't aim it to someone's face. That is the first thing he teaches them. He goes, the other thing you don't do is you don't point it to your own face. And it's just a toy, but these are the rules that he sets out. So, with that being said, there's also no communication in the homes. I am pretty sure that the majority of these kids who take these guns, they're not taking it from their own stash. They're getting it from somewhere else. And that somewhere else, the government doesn't want to talk about. But it's not from home. If we have, if we start teaching our kids the proper way, then these things wouldn't happen.
I was going to say finger off the trigger too. You don't point it at anybody. You don't point it at yourself. Your fingers are always off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. But one thing I did want to slip in though, when you're talking about the reasons behind mass shootings, Maycie, Oxford University, every mass shooting in some sense is a fringe event driven by one-off factors like ideology or personal circumstances of the shooter. The last thing it says is the risk is impossible to fully erase. So no matter what you do, this kind of thing is going to happen. Take away the guns, doesn't really matter. We've already seen the statistics on other ways of killing people. It's going to happen no matter what, in other words.
And I think that brings me to a statistic that I had been talking to Danny and Mel about, was that France, who has much stricter gun laws than we do in the U.S., France had more mass shootings in 2015 than all of Obama's 8 years as president, okay, in a single year.
Wow.
And with those strict gun laws, it did not stop somebody in 2015 from killing 130 people at a concert.
Wow.
But yet here in America, it's a huge problem.
But see, that's another thing that pisses me off, is we keep coming back to this concept of this doesn't happen in other developed countries.
It does.
It does.
It does.
So are we saying France is undeveloped? Because that's new.
No.
I'm surprised that's France.
There was
France. Wow.
Right? But crimeresearch.org actually stated, they did a comparison, right, during Obama's presidency from 2009 to 2015. They did this comparison study, right? And they compared the annual death rate from mass shootings in European states, the U.S., and Canada, right? The U.S. ranked 11 when it came to an actual annual death rate. Okay, we ranked 11th, and then it comes back to, but it's the frequency of these shootings that happens. Well, they compared those two with the same countries, right? We ranked 12th. There are 27% more casualties in the EU per capita than the U.S. from 2009 to 2015. 27%.
So, okay, now that you say that, and now that, because now people are pushing, I don't know if you saw the commercials that came out immediately of all these celebrities and actors saying, we need to get rid of our guns, we need to get rid of our guns. With that being said, are we going to stop making movies with, even if they're fake, are we going to stop making movies with guns? Are our politicians and our elite people going to stop using armed security? Are we going to stop,
Touche.
But are we going to, are they going to stop using guns for themselves, like armed security, to, take them from from point A to point B? Or are we going to stop using security on their kids? Because even after they're done with their terms, they still have security, and it's armed security. So is that all going to stop as well? Or is it just for us peasants who have our guns and they just want to take our guns? Is it for
They just
us?
want to take your guns.
Of course it's
They know full well it's not going to
But see,
change
that's
anything.
not fair, and it's not right.
But you better watch where
that's
you're
okay.
going, Mel, because if we keep going down this trail, they're going to want to take our hands, because hands kill more people than freaking hammers.
When's the background check going to be out for hammers at Home Depot? I mean, honestly, for shit's sake. You know,
You better have
Hammers,
this is not
Well,
going
shoot.
How
nothing's
about
going to stop.
knives? How about knives?
This is all going on because they want to disarm us, period. They know full well the statistics on all these murders. Look what happened in England. Look what happened in England when they started clamping down on guns. All of a sudden, the knife attacks went up substantially.
Exactly.
So what are you going to do?
Again.
You now can't buy some cutlery at Walmart without a background check.
Do you guys remember that they actually put the boxes on street corners for people to put their knives into, and then someone stole the fucking boxes
Wow.
filled with knives? And y'all, this is ignorant. This is straight up ignorant. All of your attempts at actually solving the problem do not come back to building up the family. They do not come back to helping people. It comes back to taking away rights, not giving freedom. And if you have freedom to make bad decisions, you also have the freedom to shoot somebody who is trying to harm you. And I refuse to be told that because, I've, struggled with depression, or because, I'm transgender, or because I'm this or I'm that I shouldn't be allowed to have a gun. No, you are an individual person, and based on an individual case-by-case basis, we make these determinations. Legally, legislation has proven to not be an effective way to curb this particular violence. So if that is the case, what do we suggest to curb the violence? Kicking everything out, let the communities that are shooting up houses and everything, they've got to solve this shit for themselves, because that's not happening in my community. I know what solved it for my community. We already discussed that. But how do we fix, when it comes to you as a parent with school-age children, what would you implement to solve this problem of shootings in schools?
Education, for starters.
Well, as a parent, education, teaching your kids how to use
safety.
even a toy gun, because they have to start somewhere. Might as well. But not only that, again, and I'm talking about New York City, which I know I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for. The DA that we have, this man allows a criminal to walk by lunchtime. So again, our problem is not the guns. Our problem is our government, who we're picking, who is in those seats. If we start electing people, if we start electing people who have more values than what this current DA has, we wouldn't be having these situations. The majority of the crime that is happening in New York City is because these kids, these people in general, commit the crime. Doesn't matter what type it is, they're gone by lunchtime or dinner time. So where is the government in that?
I know that we've somehow classified that math is racist. Is science still racist? Because I'm pretty sure that in basic science classes, they teach you, it's one of Newton's laws, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Consequences.
Yes.
There are consequences for your actions. And most of the people prior to the early 1990s were suicides. If they killed other people with guns, they turned the gun on themselves because they knew that there was going to be a problem. They knew that they were going to get the death penalty. There were going to be consequences for their actions. But now you can literally defend yourself like Kenosha. You can literally defend yourself and be looked at and completely demolished in the media because you defended yourself, even though the court case proved after all of that time he was within his rights and it was self-defense.
If you were to pull out your firearm at a Walmart parking lot and shoot someone that was trying to kill someone else, your life is pretty much toast. They don't make it easy on people who defend others with their firearms. So here again, going back to Mel's point, electing people that actually make, wise decisions, logical decisions. If you're in a parking lot getting beat up by your ex-husband, say, who pulls a gun out and I shoot him, guess who's going to jail? Likely me. It shouldn't be that way.
No.
And just people that we elect that have no wherewithal is what's ruining America.
And ignorance.
Yeah, totally.
You have people get up in Congress and talk about we need gun reform, right? We need gun reform. We got to take away guns. We got to get these assault weapons.
Maxine Waters.
I hate that term. But okay, but you have these same people that are standing up on their pedestal going, we need to solve this problem. You shouldn't be able to shoot a 50 cal bullet out of this AR-15. Show me an AR-15 you can shoot a 50 caliber bullet out of. I would pay you money to see that.
And it's a 50 round clip too,
exactly.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here going, you don't know the basics about guns.
No.
Because you don't have
Ignorance.
you don't have to own one because you have paid someone who does know about guns to stand in a circle around you and protect you.
Hey, Mace,
Exactly.
Have you
Yes,
seen
sir.
Have you seen the meme where it has the person holding a gun and shooting a gun? It's a revolver, but the shell is coming out like it's an automatic. Have you seen that one? Mm-hmm. The shell does not get expended or what's the right word? Expended, whatever how you want to say it. Does not come out of a revolver when you shoot it. That's an automatic, right? So whoever made that little comedic meme had no idea what they were even doing. They don't know firearms, in other words, like the 50 caliber AR-15. There's no such thing, or AR-14. How about that one?
Oh,
I hear it all the time.
I was going to bring that up because, that was very important. We have AR-14s that I wasn't even aware of.
I know.
Yeah.
What is
We must be ignorant about guns.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And when Mel, you were talking about how, you have for your kids, you have very specific rules when it comes to guns, whether it's Nerf guns, real guns, whatever. You have very specific rules. And I'm in that same camp. I'm, married to a Marine vet. Obviously, guns are a very big thing for us. It's what his MOS was in the military. He built guns, right? And that being said, when our kids got to a certain age, I gave them two options. Me and my husband discussed it thoroughly, but we gave them two options. Your option was either you could learn how to shoot a real gun. We could teach you actual firearm safety and education. Or you can play shooting video games. Okay? But you couldn't do both.
I know what the answers are going to be on this one.
Both of my kids, one of which absolutely loves all things video games, opted to not play any shooting games and learn to shoot. And so we did firearm safety. We've taught him, and now my 7-year-old, now 7, has come of age, and he got to shoot his first rifle, And I will never forget the moment of watching my youngest son shoot his first. Okay, first off, my oldest son, I've got pictures, I've memorialized it, it's amazing, because I felt like that was sort of a coming of age, a little passage, But watching my youngest son learn to shoot just recently, was amazing for me because it was a group, my husband, his best friend, 3 of our other friends, all these guys standing around him, teaching him, no. Like you said, Mark, don't you put that finger on that trigger. That's not what we do. Until you have aimed it and you have breathed out, you don't touch the trigger. Okay. And we have always tried to make it understandable for kids. My husband has a phrase that has stuck with me, and I know I'm going to mess it up. But keep your booger hook off the boom boom switch until you're ready to bang bang. Okay?
Makes sense. Whatever works.
But
right?
again, this goes to teaching your kids about, guns, and a lot of parents don't want to talk about it because it's taboo. It shouldn't be taboo. It should be a thing of, you teach them. And again, okay, so here in New York, if you're going to, have a gun, you need to have a permit. Mm-hmm. My husband has a permit. My husband has taught my kids, both of them. You see it out, you don't touch it. Mm-mm. You don't do anything. Yeah. You know how many times my husband has tested that? And my kids will not touch it if an adult is not around. They ask for permission. Not only that, my husband has taken it apart, has taught them how to put it together, how to clean it. You're supposed to sit down with your kids and make it a thing of they shouldn't be afraid. So when they hear news like this, they already know the actual truth. When the shootings happened, I had to sit down with both of them. And my husband and I, we spoke to them, and my kids already knew, well, how come, how did this kid, because it was an 18-year-old kid, how did he have a gun? Didn't someone teach him? Didn't someone go over the rules with them? These are the things that, my kids are saying in response to what we have already taught them. But society wants to create oh no, they're so bad for you. You can't do anything. You can't have guns. It is not the gun, is the person behind the trigger. And my 6-year-old said, well, why do people keep blaming a thing when it's us, our fingers, that do it? And this is coming from a 6-year-old kid.
Well, I say they don't blame cars when people use a vehicle for a mass killing. It's never the car. It's all of a sudden the person.
Oh.
When you use a firearm, it's the gun.
Yeah, it's.
One more thing I want to add too is if you grew up if you grew up in a home where you respect firearms, you understand firearms, you're so much less likely to use that firearm in a wrongful way. Oh. You're not afraid of it. In other words, kids that come up in homes that don't have any firearms, don't have any respect for them, don't know them, they look at when they do finally see a gun,
that was me.
They think it's an evil thing.
That was me.
No,
that was totally me. I was raised not around guns. Okay, I was raised,
here,
completely oblivious. And when I saw my first gun, I was like, "Oh my God, what do I do?"
You thought it was evil.
I did, but then I started, because I don't know. This is probably gonna blow your mind. I researched. Can you imagine me doing that? What? No.
When I got my AR-15, it was a big deal. And I remember going over to my niece's house, my brother-in-law's house, and my niece was there. And I was, for whatever reason, we were showing the gun. And everybody loved it. But as soon as my niece walked in the room, she may have been around 11 years old at the time. It was like, it was so scary. I'm like, what's your problem? She was literally afraid when she saw this gun because she grew up in a house without any firearms, thought it was evil. We all know that an AR-15, the black rifle, is it's so scary, right? But the reaction on her face was clearly what we're all talking about right now. No familiarization, she wasn't familiar at all with firearms at all, so she was afraid of them, thinking that they were it was the evil thing.
It's just funny how society has a way of, messing with your mind when it comes to, how they portray guns. But in all reality, it's not the gun, it's the person. And going back to mental health, it's a huge chunk of what is happening and what is wrong with our society. These people are missing, I don't like saying the word slipping through the cracks because it's not their fault. It's the government's fault, because at one point in time we had asylums and they were taken away because it wasn't, feasible for it wasn't feasible for the state to keep them up, to keep them funded because, I guess, people need the politicians needed money in their pockets and not in these people's, to help them out. All these problems stem from that, and it also stems from just nowadays, here, just take a Percocet, or here, take this, take an antidepressant, and just keep feeding them pharmaceuticals just to help them, cope with what they have, but not actually sit down and listen to them so they could actually diagnose them with what is it that they have, so then they can get the proper treatment. But no, society has shunned that away and just made it a political thing with it's guns, it's guns. There's a hidden agenda to this.
We don't need mental health hospitals if you can give somebody an antidepressant and make all of their things go away. But then you read the label and the side effects for that, it could possibly make you suicidal. It could possibly make you homicidal.
Yes, but not only that. You know where you can get these prescription drugs from? You don't even need to go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist anymore. The freaking the pediatrician can give it to you without even properly diagnosing you. That's the problem we have in America. It is not guns. It is the problem that the government is trying to, take away our rights, and they're using any which way or any means necessary to do it.
And see, this is where I disagree with you a little bit, because I don't think this is fully a governmental issue. I feel like this is a societal issue.
I do too.
Societally, we look at what we elevate, right? Miley Cyrus, we'll just use this as a basic example, okay? She was all cute and like Disney Channel and everybody loved her. And, she's like, Party in the USA and boots and cutoff shorts or whatever.
Oh,
and
Hannah Montana.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, all the children loved her. All the children loved her. But then she came to a particular age, same age that that list of school shooters, same average age. She came to this particular age, and all of a sudden she is humping an inflatable penis on a mainstream awards show.
Yep.
And acting a fool and having all of these issues, and the same people that idolized her as Hannah Montana still continued to follow her. And whereas they were not mentally ready to move to that particular level of indecency, she was, And so in a sense, I feel sorry for Miley Cyrus, because she wasn't able to, progress in a natural way, which made it was either one extreme or the other. But we are doing that societally across this country, telling kids that they don't have to have parental consent to chop body parts off, telling parents that they don't have access to their kids' education, telling kids that, it's okay if you're completely 100% unhappy and you're being bullied. Just tell somebody and they'll fix it. And then we don't fix it. You give these false promises. You give these false securities to these children. And then when they are let down, what does that cause? It causes resentment and hate and anger. And in that, they turn around and act out. We are breeding this into our society.
I think you're 100% right, Maycie. But I think what Mel was trying to say, though, when she was talking, is that the government. I'm sure we all agree it's a societal thing, like you're talking about. But what Mel was talking about was the government wants to take our guns from us.
It's a mixture of both.
Yeah, the government's just trying. The government, they know what the reality is. They're just trying to take our firearms from. They're taking away our Second Amendment rights. Period. That's what I think Mel was saying. When it comes to the government being the problem.
Yeah. Well, it's that. It's also, like Maycie said, it's a societal thing. It's a parental problem, because nobody wants to be parents anymore. Everybody wants to be friends. There is no such thing as friends in my household. I am your mother. You're my kid.
What do I want to be friends with a 7-year-old for? That's creepy.
Exactly.
I certainly don't want to be friends with an 11-year-old.
You know what's funny is tell your
like
kid.
I told my daughter.
Tell your kid that you're not here to be their friend. They're here to be their parent, and they're like, "What? What did you just say?"
I don't care. I tell her all the
don't want to be their buddy. I'm here to raise you.
That's not my.
Oh no, but then
job is not to be their friend. My job is to create a good human, to teach them structure and discipline, and to give them all of the things to make them a good adult. When they're adults, I am all for going and have a drink with my kids and hanging out on the porch and chilling.
Not right now.
Exactly.
You have to earn it.
You have is too important.
That and funny that you say that. a couple weeks ago, this has nothing to do with the parenting part. This has to do with the societal part. A couple weeks ago, we were all for, my body, my choice. Yeah. Let me use their terminology. This is my pussy, not the government's. Okay, with that being said, we were all for killing kids 2 weeks ago, correct?
Yep.
Now that a school shooting happened, 23 are now 23 kids. I don't know the actual number, but 18. Now that those kids are, they're gone. Oh, the poor kids. These are the same people that wanted to kill them 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And they also wanted to groom them too.
That's a great
point. But now it's the poor kids. But again, this is where our society is
We
at.
kill over 2,000 babies a day by way of abortion.
Yes.
And yet, all of a sudden, 18 kids are slaughtered into a big, it's all of a sudden, oh no, how do we do this to children? While they're writing a check to Planned Parenthood.
Exactly.
It's really something else.
But that's okay. It's A-okay.
Yep.
But
this is where our society is coming to, which is ridiculous because everything that's good is now bad, and whatever's bad is good.
It comes down to,
and I think I mentioned this in episode
about the government wanting to take your guns. They know they're killing 2,000 babies a day by way of abortion. Okay, and they know it's the number in Texas was only 18 kids, but yet they're still, they're still pushing the gun issue. So they're trying to take your firearms away from you. Period.
Yep. And it's the way that they're piping it out on mainstream media, through social media, the way that they're getting the kids with TikTok and all of that. Because that information is being piped down everywhere. But nobody wants to talk about the abortions. Nobody wants to talk about the crimes that are happening in New York City. Nobody wants to talk about the crimes that are happening in California or Chicago. But no, let's keep that on a hush-hush. And those were also, the majority of them are done by guns. But nobody wants to talk about that.
Nobody wants to talk about the fact that the majority of those crimes that are committed by guns are in states and cities with the strongest gun legislation on the books.
Exactly.
Blue states.
Yeah, and I live in one of them.
And so I come back to so during my upbringing, I have two monumental things that happened that I distinctly remember as sort of changing my viewpoint, right? Columbine happened and 9/11 happened. Okay? So Columbine and 9/11, they really did, they made an impact on me because I was young, and I looked at these situations and I'm like, so you can actually kill more people with an airplane than you can with a gun. That's good to know, but that being said, look at the Columbine shooting in general. These kids had mental health issues. There were multiple issues that were reported for bullying. You had, do what?
They were also the children of Democrats. Just want to add that in.
And I don't think that's important. I think
that's not important.
Very important, actually. But we'll go down that road later.
Okay,
no, I differ on that.
Do you think that their parents' political party holds more weight than the fact that these young men went up to individuals and asked if they believed in God, and if they responded with yes, they shot them? I think the lack of belief.
I remember that, and that.
Well, Democrats are not known to be going to church either, so there is some validity to that point.
But you can't even say that because if that's your argument, you're saying that, oh, well, Democrats don't like guns, then how are Democrats the ones making these shootings happen? If they don't like guns, why do they own guns? It doesn't, those don't compute.
They own guns for that very reason, to kill people, innocent people.
No.
This kid that went and killed these 18 kids the other day wasn't a gun enthusiast. Okay, he didn't own 2 AR-15s because he liked guns. He wanted to kill people. He wanted to kill somebody.
Okay, you want to bring that up. Where did he get the money to get those things? He was dirt poor. Where did he get the money for that?
And why did he have to go legally buy these guns after he turned 18?
Exactly.
Because his grandfather, who he had lived with, was his grandfather, I think his stepfather, was a felon. He wasn't allowed to have guns in the home. Okay? So he had to secretly get these weapons. I don't think that it has anything to do with political party. I think that we have gotten so far away from morality in this country and so far away from educating yourself and the dependence on the school system, the government, social media, Google to educate you, that we have completely lost sight of the fact that we are making broken humans, and we are not taking the time to look at the cracks and go, what can we do to fix this?
But this is also what they want. They want us divided in a blue and red thing. It is not about that. The person behind the gun, to me, I don't care where they affiliate. That is the person who is doing it for their own reason. And the media is trying to push that out there so we could all be divided. And that is what they're trying to do.
And if we go by this concept, you're basically saying, because, I mean, it parallels, you know, the shooting comes out and they go, oh, well, it was a Democrat that shot a Republican or whatever, but this person struggled for mental health. Is every Democrat have mental health issues? No.
No.
Joe Manchin's doing an awfully wonderful job at proving that he is not as mentally incapable as most of the other Democrats in Congress.
Yeah, he's this close to being a Republican too. How many Democrats do you think are actually educating their children about firearms in their home? They're not.
We don't know.
How
many Republicans are educating their kids?
Exactly.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Who's coming after our firearms, Republicans or Democrats? It's Democrats. Do you think they actually are educating their children?
The
kids that come up and do these things are not around firearms in a respectable level, okay? They're not. They see them as killing machines.
I'm not looking at it that way.
I'm just saying that you guys are not getting
what is happening in general.
You're not understanding where I'm coming from.
We have sneaky Republicans doing shady stuff. What makes you think that they're not going to be shady and trying to do the same thing with our guns?
I'm not saying that there are not shady Republicans. That's not what I'm saying.
When you look at a situation like this, and we try to divide it based on, well, how old were they? What skin color were they? Who shot and who was killed? You know, did those skin colors, were they opposites? You know, it's the same as the police shootings that we saw. You know, oh, well, it was a black officer or it was a white officer shooting a black person. You know, we amplify this idea of how party affiliation completely structures your mindset. And I genuinely believe that that's not true. I believe that there are very good Democrats out there. I believe that there are probably some pretty good progressives out there that are looking at things from this common sense standpoint, but they don't have the backing or the information to make more sound decisions, if that makes sense.
If you don't think that Democrat and Republican makes a difference, Maycie, who's actually writing the checks at Planned Parenthood? Who's actually behind and supporting the killing of 2,000 plus babies per day with abortion? It's not Republicans, okay?
Yes, it is.
It's Democrats. It's Democrats.
Majority.
I understand. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, but if you say that there are 10 people in a room and 7 of those people decide, I don't know, that they're going to eat pizza, that doesn't mean that all 10 people are going to be happy with the decision to eat pizza. Okay, just because you feel like you're voting on something, you're voting on it based on particular parts. And when it comes to the government aspect, look at these bills that they're passing. Of course, there's a lot of people passing stuff through that's got negative consequences and negative connotations because we're passing bills that you couldn't read in a lifetime. Okay,
and we're just checking off boxes.
We're checking off
without doing our research.
And I don't want to divide people at all. I'm not left. I'm not right. I fall more to the right, I would assume. But I don't think that this is a party problem. I think that the party division has been amplified. Going what?
Going back to what Mel was saying about hiring and electing good people, it all comes down to how they believe.
When I go in there, right now we have midterms coming up. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to research who is going to best represent not only myself, my kids, my family. I don't want to go in affiliation with blue or red. If it happens to be that I am, that I see where this person is coming from, and don't, like, I think Maycie brought it up a few episodes ago. Don't tell me you're a Christian, because that's not going to win. That's not going to win my vote.
It's faith-based pandering.
I need to see. Yes, I need to see what am I going to get? What's the benefit for me if I vote for you? What's going to happen to my kids? That's the way that I'm going into, going to vote for someone. It's doing my research on them. And what a lot of people are doing, they're just going by what is being thrown out there on mainstream media again. These are the main people. And half of the time when you even see the ballot, you're like, well, nobody talked about the other 3 people that are on the ballot. Like, who are they? And that's the problem. We need to do our research.
And so I have a question for Mark. So you were talking about what Mel was saying and about how we need to really look at the candidates that we're choosing, and you do believe that and I respect your opinion on this. I disagree with it, but I do respect that this is your opinion and that you believe that this is a democratic issue. I completely respect that. But my question is it going to propel us forward? If, like, would you say we shouldn't elect any more Democrats?
That's a sticky question. It's a hard question, because I think I really do believe that we are going down a road of destruction with these people. They want to take our firearms from us. They want to abort babies. They believe in transgender this and that. I think we're going down a really bad road with Democrats. I honestly believe that Democrats will be the end of us.
But do you believe that Democrats as a whole should not be elected anymore?
Yes.
Or do you believe? Okay, so you believe that we should just stop electing Democrats in general?
Well, I think
I find that genuinely.
We need to have a balanced, some balanced thinking. But the way the Democrats are going as of late, a JFK Democrat, I'd be all for them. But the Democrats of the modern day, no, they are evil. AOC is pure evil. Okay, Maxine Waters is pure evil. Okay, Barack Obama is pure evil.
So.
Okay, these people are evil, and they will be the destruction of our world, not just our country. Look at Bill Gates. Look at George Soros. These are Democrats. They're Democrats. They are going to destroy us. Kamala Harris.
Oh, we can't even find her, so I don't even know.
What?
We can't even find her.
So when you say Democrats be elected anymore, my answer is no. But we do need a balance of thought, okay? But Democrats, I'm telling you, with all the things that we're seeing in the modern day coming from Democrats, they are going to fucking ruin us. Forgive my French.
Well, those aren't Democrats anymore. They're socialists.
Well,
they just have to come out and say.
Thank you for making my point even more, Mel, because they are socialists.
But you're also going to see the rhinos come out and say that they're also socialists.
So we'll get rid of them.
And there's
too.
Also,
we'll get rid of them
keep
too.
coming
Mitt
back
Romney,
to it as much.
Get the fuck out of here, Mitt Romney.
There's a whole bunch of people that need to get out the Republican Party then.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, Mark Rubio, the list goes on and on.
But
what's the other guy? The guy with the patch. That's another one who needs to leave.
Yeah.
Crenshaw.
So
there's a whole bunch of them.
But my question comes back to, if we tell people stop electing Democrats, that means that you are more likely,
to have a Democrat.
If you tell people to stop electing Democrats, there is a 0% chance that you're going to get more Joe Manchins, that you're going to get more, Kristen, these people, there are good, solid, moral Democrats out there, classical Democrats. They're not.
Huh?
But they're not. there are good and bad on every side, as we've discussed. And I believe that if we can focus more on, rather than someone's status, rather than someone's, bullshit, if we can focus on good people and being good people, not what's going to make me trend and what's going to propel me forward in this social media lifestyle, if we can do more of that and be like, you know what? Videos of me giving my hard-earned money out to homeless people who have nothing do a lot better than videos of somebody getting hit in the face with a 2x4. So if that's the case, let's share more videos, of acts of kindness. But we don't do that because trending, based on the algorithm, based on the sadistic aspects of our society, we elevate violence. Regardless of the weapon, regardless of if you gouge someone's eyes out with a spoon, okay, why a spoon? Because it would hurt more. But, it's just, we've got to start really thinking that this is not a particular demographic issue. This is a problem that we are all facing. And if we are all facing this problem, I personally feel like all the labels need to be sort of pushed aside, and it needs to be an American issue that Americans discuss. And if we have all of our congressional leaders come in and go, take my blue pen, take my red pen, we're going to sit down and talk about this like humans, we would be in a much better place. But we're not doing that because they walk in.
But this is what they're trying to do. They want us all divided, and we should stop listening to what they're telling us and come together as a nation, as we once used to be. Doesn't matter what party. At this point, we are in desperate times, yes, but we need to come together and realize us going separate is dividing everyone, and this is why we're in the situations we're in.
I don't want you guys to think that I hate Democrats, okay? What I'm talking about, what I'm saying is it's time to actually start highlighting the people who are supporting these bad things that are ruining our country. It's not that I hate Democrats, and I want to apologize for dropping the F-bomb a couple of times. I get a little angry, but I'm not saying I hate Democrats. I don't hate anybody. I'm saying look at the policies, look at what they're doing, what they're supporting, and pushing down the pike. Okay, that is destroyed. We can see it destroying. We can see our country and our people being ruined right before our eyes. Who is supporting those things? It's not generally conservatives that are supporting those things. So in other words, if Democrats are getting in and they're continuing their little agenda, we are going to be ruined. We're going to be ruined. Period.
So when we look at the death of these children that just happened recently, obviously all of us, feel for the families that are affected by this and but I know that a lot of people immediately went into being sad. And I guess initially for like a minute and a half, I was very sad
a whole minute
that this
and a
had
half?
happened. But that being said, when we talk about school shootings, there are statistics that are out there that say that school shootings are only 10% of the crime, because most of them happen in neighborhoods and stuff like that. So when we talk about that 98% of mass shootings happen in schools or in gun-free zones, that's because we have removed the statistics about gang violence and home invasions and anything at a actual crime being committed. These people, a mass shooting is not technically a crime all on its own, right? It's murder. It's murder, but that is the crime itself. If we actually put in the statistics of, crimes in progress, robberies, stuff like that, gang violence, these numbers are a lot smaller. And I think that I know that me and Mel were on the same page, but when we initially got over that initial sad aspect, we were mad because we knew what was coming.
Yeah.
We knew exactly that red flag laws were going to come up. We knew that gun legislation was going to happen. And look at what Beto O'Rourke did. They hadn't even finished the press conference. Okay. They hadn't even finished the press conference. And he's like, this was foreseeable. And I'm like, all I could think in my head was that meme of, hell yeah, we're coming for your AK-47s. Hell yeah, we're coming for your AR-15s, and that little like Clown Town freaking music that played behind it. And I think that people are so easily moved based on emotion opposed to facts and education. And I think that we need to bring our society back to elevating us based on knowledge. If you don't have knowledge of this, you shouldn't be legislating this.
Not only that, but where's the same outrage for those kids that are being shot in the city of New York, in Chicago, in Detroit, in California? Where is that same outrage?
In the drive-thru at McDonald's.
Talks about it. Yeah, where is that same outrage? We don't get it because it doesn't fit the narrative.
I got a good one for you. While you're talking about Beto O'Rourke, how he'd see it coming, my immediate thought was, can you see someone getting in their motor vehicle and driving down into a school parade and killing 200 kids all at once? There are 276 motor vehicles in America. Okay, how much more damage do you think you can do with a motor vehicle than you can with a 1911 45 or even an AR-15 for that matter? All right, 276 motor vehicles.
Well, how much damage can you do with the airplane?
That's precisely my point. In other words, you could see this coming. What were the words he used, Maycie? This was foreseeable. I can go out and get in my car. I didn't need a background check to get to buy my car. I could do a lot more damage with that. I promise you.
He said it was totally predictable.
In other words,
and I'm like,
in
if
your
it's
heart.
Predictable,
it's in your heart. That's what the whole point is. It's in your freaking heart.
But the thing is, when we go back to the Buffalo shooter.
Sorry?
When we go to the Buffalo shooter, you want to talk about something that was predictable? The kid was literally mental. He had an evaluation
written out.
You know, he had a freaking mental health evaluation done. It was because he said he was going to shoot up his school. Okay, so that one, predictable. Totally feel you. This one, the kid had left school, so there's no school affiliation. He had left home. There's no family affiliation. We have a problem of leaving children on their own and expecting that a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old child is capable of raising themselves. And whereas some may be capable of raising themselves, most children really require guidance. And if and it goes back to what we talked about earlier, if you go with this idea of wanting to be your kid's friend rather than being their guidance, then you have already failed your kid.
And that is the problem, because parents nowadays, and I keep saying it, want to be friends with their kids. I'm not about that. Not only that, they allow their kids to have social media. My kid has a cell phone. She is 12. She had it when she was 8 because she was going to an activity. She is not allowed to have Facebook. She is not allowed to have any of these other little things. She's not allowed to have that. It is called being a parent. Have restrictions upon your kid. And if you're scared that your kid is going to say, well, it's my cell phone. Who's paying for it? Let's be real. Are you working and paying for it? No. Stop being scared about your kid. Be a parent. And if you have to discipline your kid, take that belt and
be an
when they need it.
Go ahead, Mace.
No, that's all I had to say is be an active parent. Go ahead, Mark. We're gonna try to this up. So go ahead.
Going back to I'll make it quick. Going back to the being a parent, not a friend. My daughter came home with she got an email sent to my wife about her behavior in class, and then the following day came home with a actual printed slip from the bus driver about what she was doing, being bad on the bus. And I told her, you know what? It's about time I started doing. I was guilty. I was guilty because I wasn't punishing my children the way I should. Okay, so I got the old spanking stick out and I spanked my daughter, and I had to explain to her why she was why she was acting this way at school, acting out in school, on the bus, and so on, because I dropped the ball. I wasn't punishing my kid. I wasn't, I wasn't being their guide. I was being their friend. So, and I said to her yesterday when she got in a little trouble yesterday, I said, look, I'm over feeling bad about spanking you, okay? I used to break my heart to spank you. That's why I never did it, or did it very little. I'm over it. In other words, I'm coming back to being the guide rather than being the friend. And it works. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. I said, this is not the way you're carrying on in school and in the bus is not going to persist. It's not going to, and you'll be all the better for it. When you're my age, I look back at all the spankings I got when I was a kid. I thank my parents for them now. Thank you, God, for giving me these parents. It changed me.
I was going to say that in closing.
Sorry.
In closing, look, we remember we are a product of our parents. You rolled your eyes. I remember getting one of these all the time. My mom was infamous for always hitting me. I said something, boom. There was no, let's sit down and let's talk about this. There was none of that. It was, I did something wrong, boom. With my dad, he just gave the look, and that was it. That just, to this day, he is 72 years old. That man will still scare me with that
and
look.
You're thankful for it, right?
It is the fact that, yes, as a kid, I was like, oh, my parents are so evil. But now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh, my parents were right. But
yes.
No, you could go ahead.
I agree with you. And, the thing is, I was probably not smacked enough as a child. Like, let's just be honest. I did some things that, let's just sugarcoat this. I was wild as a child. Okay. And I appreciate my parents so much, but I do understand now as I am a parent that I'm like, man, when I had done this, my mom I should have been pooping teeth for the next month. Okay. I should have just been completely backhanded. And my dad had that same look, where he would bite his lower lip and you could really tell that he was about to lose it. Yeah. And everybody dispersed, everybody just, okay, bye. And I'm like, okay, so it makes sense to me from a parenting standpoint, but I think that a lot of this comes back to you have to know your kids. And so many of these shooters and so many of these issues, all of the parents come out, well, he was such a sweet kid and he was, such a good baby and stuff like that. And I'm like, what was he doing yesterday? Can you tell me what he
exactly?
Because I make sure that I read at one point that the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes of a child's day are the most influential that they will ever see. So you make sure that in the first 3 minutes and the last 3 minutes before they go to sleep,
makes total sense,
that you say something kind to your child.
Makes total sense.
Because they will remember that. Yep. And everything in between, if you mess up, the term fuck around and find out, that comes to play. But that's 6 minutes of the day. I make sure that I love on my kids.
It makes total sense.
I make sure that I always hug and kiss my kids when they wake up and go to sleep. I want that to be remembered. But then again, like I said, I hate video games. But I sat down with my kid the other day and let him teach me Minecraft and show me. And he's been doing this a couple of times recently. I've just been trying to be invested and spend the time in his world, disperse myself in his world. And rather than thinking that I'm just dragging along this kid on a leash, no, you're supposed to go my way. Come on, we're doing this, no, that's not how it works. You have to dive in to what they're dealing with, and then you have to explain it from the grown-up standpoint. And I think that gets lost in translation. But
yes,
we are going on and on and on and on. And this has been probably one of the most amazing conversations that we have had. And I am so thankful that this one was recorded. So let's go ahead and close out. Mel, why don't you take it away?
Okay, guys. Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Politics Plus podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and also follow us on the following channels that we have: Instagram and Twitter, iTunes, Spotify, Rumble, Amazon Music, Audible, Anchor. Thank you guys for listening to us today on Politics Plus podcast. Bye.
See you in 2 weeks.